Hello, everyone. This is the third episode of my expert interview. Today, we'll be talking about public speaking again, but today we'll be talking about a very specific angle of public speaking, that is humor. And to share his expert views, I have with me Mr. Lenny. Mr. Lenny is a keynote speaker and an expert on humor, and he has been associated with theater. Welcome, Mr. Lenny. How are you?
Fine, thank you. You could call me Lenny Ravich, R-A-V-I-C-H. My first name is Lenny. It's not Mr. Lenny for you, it's Lenny, and that's fine. And I'll call you Ruhan.
It's okay, sir. Actually, it's a like cultural thing in India. It's like a forbidden thing to call our elders by name. So
okay, so you can call me Mr. Lenny then.
yeah. So, Mr. Lenny, today's interview is about humor. And we all know that humor can be a very good element to get the attention of your audience. When we add humor to our speech, it releases serotonin in the audience, and that creates a bonding. They become comfortable. So, why should I add humor to my speech? Why is it that important? What's your view on this?
Well, first of all, Ruhan, it has to be important to you. You can't just add it because it's a good thing to add. It has to be a passion for you. And in other words, when I'm in front of an audience, if they're not laughing, to me, it means they're not engaged. They might be looking on their cell phones, they might be texting, they might be talking to somebody else, they might be leaving the room. But my automatic response is to entertain people because I feel that the message gets across a lot better, the message that you're trying to deliver, through a story. Many people tell stories. I tell stories, but I find the humor in the story. Mm-hmm. And people then identify with me. And when they're laughing, they're identifying. They're finding something in their own lives that sort of syncs with my story. And this brings us together closer. It makes people in the audience my friend. They're not pushed away from me because I'm preaching to them or I'm lecturing to them. I'm their friend. And when you get that kind of intimacy, by the way, my interpretation of intimacy is into me see. So they know that I'm being vulnerable, because when you're laughing, you're vulnerable. Like when you're crying or when you're sneezing or whatever, that's a catharsis. When you're having catharsis, you're very vulnerable. And that's what people in the audience want to see. They want to see a person who is vulnerable, not perfect. Because if a person tries to show how perfect they are, that pushes people away. But when they see somebody that is vulnerable and is human, and humor is very human, that makes them feel identified with and closer. So that's my passion. You can't just add humor. It has to be something that is part of you in your life, that you really believe in. That's your meaning in life. And so I use it because God has given me that talent. God has given me a great gift. It's a temporary gift because I'm going to be 86 years old in July. And I find out now that everything is quite temporary anyway. So it depends how you look at it. Even being temporary is humorous. You know you're going to lose it soon. You don't know when. You go to sleep at night saying, will I wake up tomorrow morning? And how will I wake up tomorrow morning? And that to me is humor.
Actually, I'm thinking about what to say based on a last sentence.
That's good. That's good. Think about it.
The last sentence, and thinking so much is going through my mind right now. So
good.
Yeah, that's the purpose of this interview. Actually,
are you confused?
I'm not confused, but I did not expect such a deep answer, because the question was about humor. And from humor, you dived into philosophy of life. Will I wake up tomorrow? And
Well,
how
humor
will I
is
wake
the
up?
philosophy of life.
It
Humor
is.
is the art of life.
It is. So you said you are gifted by the God. This humor is given as a gift to you. I am the one who is not gifted. Seriously.
What gift do you have?
I have many, but not humor. In fact, I am a naturally extroverted person. I feel comfortable in social situations. In fact, I feel comfortable on stage. I have a long experience with theater, not in humor, but like in serious theater. I used to play villain a lot in my teenage years. So I feel comfortable in front of audience generally. But when you say or when you tell me that you have to include humor in your speech, I'll be very, very nervous because there were some incidents when I cracked a joke, audience did not laugh, there were some bad experiences. So a person who is not naturally gifted, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, let me tell you, first of all, Ruhan, when you say I was not gifted with humor, I think that you are, because you would not be attracted to it if it didn't live in you somewhere. I mean, we're talking together today, right now,
Mm-hmm.
because not because you don't have humor, it's because you're trying to find that element in yourself. It does attract you. It is a passion. And for those people who say they feel embarrassed or they've had a bad experience with humor on stage, I think that was your question.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody does. Everybody has horrible, I could tell you horrible stories about myself. And when you're expecting a laugh and everybody's just looking at you like you just fell off a ladder or something, this has happened a lot. But you can't stop, because the only true way to success is failing. You can't come out and succeed. No comedian or person who uses humor got it right the first time. I suppose you could say it's like what is that sport that's like baseball in America? What is it called when you hit the ball, the black ball? In your country, it's called I forgot the name of it. But in the
In our
beginning,
country,
you're
it's cricket. Like cricket
rack.
is the main
What
sport.
is it called again?
Cricket. Cricket.
Cricket.
Cricket.
Cricket. Cricket.
Yeah.
No cricket player ever hit the ball the first time.
Hmm.
He had to miss and he had to miss and he had to miss and he had to have everybody looking at him saying, "Oh my God, where is this person coming from?" Every good drama that you watch, every good film that you watch, or it's about a person who in the beginning just couldn't get it right, but they just practiced and did it and they got out there again. Feel the fear and do it anyway. That's courage. Courage is not overcoming fear. Courage is feeling the fear and say, I'm going to do it anyway, because this is my calling. I want to continue doing this. I'm not going to be discouraged. I'm going to be embarrassed. I'm going to get hit. I'm going to be bruised. I'm going to get knocked down. But the secret is to get back up and just keep getting on stage again and again and again and failing again and again and again until you become a professional. I started actually when I was 57 years old, 60 years old. I didn't have a speaking career. I just like telling stories. So in where I come from in Israel, we have what is called a clubhouse. People invite lecturers to their homes and they bring food and everybody sits around listening to lectures. And so that was like if you know anything about open mic, getting an experience. So it's like every time I went out to a home to perform, it didn't matter how much money I was making, because every performance for me was a rehearsal, and every rehearsal was a performance. So I kept on doing it. I kept getting thrown out of people's houses. I even had people telling me they weren't going to pay me. It was so bad. I'm telling you the truth. There was a company. there was a big company, as a matter of fact, of a union that invited me, and people did nothing but talk. There were like 300 people just talking with each other while I was performing. So that the person who invited me said to me, "I can't pay you. You're just not. I know that you're maybe sometimes good, but you're not good today." So I had to call her up and say, "Could I please just have half? Because if you don't pay me at all, I'm going to have to get my lawyer, and I don't want to do that. So pay me half." And she paid me half. But I had terrible experiences, horrible experience. I still do. And the thing is that even today I perform a lot on Zoom. I get very nervous. I get anxious. But if I didn't get anxious, that means I don't have the passion. That means I have to do something else. I did many things in my life, but when I lost being scared, I stopped doing it. I used to be a director, a performer, an actor, a teacher. And once I couldn't feel the fear anymore, that means it was over. The fear was the indication that I'm doing the right thing, that I'm serving a higher power, and I have a calling, and I have to go out there and do it. It's like any story in the Bible where God speaks to Abraham or he speaks to Moses, and Moses says, "I can't talk to the Pharaoh. He's a king. What am I? I'm not." And God says, "I'm with you. Go there and I will tell you what to say." And that's what I have to believe. Even this conversation that I'm having with you, I had a talk with God before I talked to you. I said, "Will you be with me while I talk to Ruhan so that I can feel secure in giving him what he needs?" And God said, "Are you kidding? I'm always with you." And I said, "Well, I just wanted to make sure, you know." So it's a calling. You're serving. You're in the service. It's not about you. You're serving a higher power. You're serving a God, whatever you believe in, and it's not about you. It's about getting other people to feel good about life. And there's somebody in the audience that needs to hear you. There's somebody in the audience who needs your message. Even if you get up on stage and say, "You know, I would like to tell a joke, but I'm very nervous about it. I might not succeed at it." There will be nobody looking at their text. There'll be nobody talking to each other. They'll be looking up and saying, "My God, this guy Ruhan is me. He's as scared as I am." You know what I mean? Tell the truth. I'm scared, but I want to tell the joke anyway and see if you laugh, see if you like it, and let me know. I'm testing it out. So just be honest, just be open, and follow the calling. The calling is, and no matter how scared you are, as scared as Moses was when he went to talk to the Pharaoh, or as scared as Abraham was when God said, "Go, leave, I'll take, don't worry, go to a place that I'll show you." And then Abraham says, "Well, where is that?" And God says, "Trust me, yeah." Trust me, I'm God, trust me. So Abraham goes, and he said, but that's life. That's life. Abraham is our life. We just go out. We don't know where we're going. We might have an idea of what we would like to happen, but don't expect anything. Just live this moment. Just follow the guidance of this moment, and you will get to where you have to go. And it has nothing to do with what you want. Things happen that's just completely unexpected, and have zero expectations, because disappointment means that you had an expectation. If you have zero expectation, no disappointment in life. Hey, that's the way it was. It rained today. Lightning struck. There was a tsunami. There was COVID. For 2 years, people were locked up in their houses. Look at it as a blessing. I look at COVID as a blessing, because at my age, it's hard to travel around. And I used to travel around a lot. And during COVID, people wanted to be entertained. Companies, Coca-Cola, Myanmar, and Singapore called me, and Hong Kong. And I'm sitting here in my home doing Zoom presentations. Because it's, what kind of, that's a blessing. Everybody going, oh, COVID, oh my God, it ruined my life. It made my life. You just look at things differently and you can get the blessing from it. How's your brain working now?
Roller coaster. We started with the humor, then we dived into philosophy of Bible, then we dived into, then we
It's
dived
all
into,
connected.
then we dived into God, and after that we again came to humor. But I love this answer. Seriously, like every sentence that you're speaking, I'm loving it, because the thing that you said about fear, that embrace fear. If you are not scared, you are not doing well enough. We have to be scared in life. Fear is good. I really resonated with that specific sentence. I love that. So, how much time do you take to prepare for a presentation? If it is a really important presentation, for example, a company is offering you big money, and it is like a presentation of the life, something like that. So, how much time do you take to prepare for such a presentation?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because each time I perform, I have a meeting with the meeting planner, or the person who is inviting me.
Mhm.
And my question is, what is it that you need from me? Why did you come to me?
Mhm.
And what would you like the people in the audience, when they leave, what would you like them to do differently in their lives? Because you're coming there to change person's life. If you didn't come there with a strong message from your own life, and I don't care what that message is, you have no right to be on stage. You come there to make an impact on people's lives. And so I ask, what do you want? And from what they tell me, I prepare my talk. Now, I have stories, because stories always work. You can't come out and say, do da 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 da. They can go to the internet and get that. They
Mhm.
can read a book and get that.
Mhm.
They can go listen to a podcast and get that. What are you bringing that's different? You're bringing your own true story. No matter what you talk about, you can introduce what you're talking about, and then you tell a story. My stories are funny as anything, because that's who I am. I look at everything as humor. To me, humor is just common sense doing a dance. I even laughed with my doctor while he was operating on my heart, and I talk about that because I made a commitment that I'm going for heart surgery, and I could choose. I've got a whole menu. I could be anxious, I could be scared, I could be depressed, I could have fun, I could make the doctor feel good. And the thing is about us as human beings, we are wired to make other people feel good, because that makes us feel good. It's a dance. People don't realize that the moment you make someone smile or feel good or give a compliment, and you see that they feel good, that makes you automatically feel good. When you help someone, you serve someone, you give somebody what they need, it makes you feel good. It's a tremendous gift that we're wired to help and to make people feel good, because that makes us feel good. So it's all positive. It's all positive. And one of my questions, really, when I get up every morning, is I ask the higher power, how can I serve you today? What can I do for you today? Because I just feel guided to say hello to certain people who many people probably don't say hello to, or to smile. And when somebody asks me, I go to the pool every day to go swimming, and people come to me because they feel positive around me. And they're like, hi Lenny. And the whole place becomes like a party, because they see me as a positive force in their lives. And they know what my answer is when they say, how are you? They know my answer. Now is my best moment because there is no other moment. And they love that because some of them even wait for me. They say, how are you? I say, okay, no, come on. How are you? And they wait for that answer because that makes them feel good. So I don't know what we were talking about. I got lost. I forgot what we were talking about. But I hope that you
I
got some kind
noticed
of an
that
answer.
I noticed that in your stand-ups, you after every 5 minutes, you ask the audience, where was I? So I really wanted to,
I in my stand-up.
yeah, in your stand-up comedy shows, I watched some of them
Yeah,
on
yeah.
YouTube before our conversation. After every 5 minutes, you ask the audience, where was I? So is
Right.
that I actually wrote this question in my notebook, and I want to ask you, is that intentional or do you actually forget where were you?
I actually forget.
Okay.
And and I think just like now, I said, what are we talking about? I don't know where we are. I don't even remember the question you asked me. But how do you feel about that? How do you feel when I say to you, I don't remember what we're talking about? Where, how did we get here? How do you feel about that?
I feel that you are being vulnerable and you are being brutally honest. You do not fear being embarrassed. Okay, because most of the people won't say this because they will think that other person might feel that I am like stupid or I have memory issues. But when a person starts accepting himself, only then, when a person starts enjoying life, enjoying the moment, only then a person can say such things.
Well, thank you for that. What I found was I was pleased to see my audience responding and telling me where I was. And then I suddenly became friendly with them. What is your name? And the person said their name. I said, would you be my secretary? And
Yeah,
anytime I get lost,
I
so
saw that.
okay, you build up an intro. I didn't expect that.
Mhm.
I didn't expect that. It was not rehearsed. But I find out that okay, they want to help me. They feel part of the show now. If I ask somebody to be my secretary, it's like being an honor to be my secretary and reminding me where I was. And it brought me even closer to them. Uh, I felt that we had an interaction with an audience. That's very important, by the way. Having an interaction. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. I don't know if you ever saw one of my talks where I invite people up to talk to me in their language. For instance, I was in Hong Kong and I asked people where they were from, where they speak another language.
Mhm.
And so because this is interaction, and one man said, yes, I speak Danish, and I invited him up to speak to me in Danish. And I would answer him in Danish, but it was not Danish, it was like gibberish Danish.
Mhm.
So he was, but people are so totally focused on that. When you do something spontaneous, you bring somebody up and you do an improvisation with them, or you interact the way I did. I'm lost. I don't know where I am. Where was I? And they remind you. That's a fantastic interaction because it's happening in the moment. You're lost.
Mhm.
There's nobody on their text messages then. Nobody is talking to anybody. Nobody is getting up and walking out. They're totally focused because it's happening now. You're lost. You're admitting that you're lost. You're being vulnerable. You're saying help, and they're helping you. So that's very important. Interaction with the audience. I want you to take a look at that on YouTube where I speak Danish to someone without knowing Danish. I just hear the accent.
Mhm.
He says to me something like, and I say, and I don't
Mhm.
even know what I'm doing, but I'm getting into the rhythm of it. And this is something that totally puts people into a state of ecstasy because they're watching something happen Two people are communicating in a language they both don't understand. It's happening in the here and now. It's interactive. It's improvisation. People will, you engage an audience completely in that way if you can do that. And I would like to teach you how to do that.
Okay.
Not now, some other time. How's your brain working so far?
Fine. This is the best interview I ever had.
Of course. Of course.
And I never laughed so much in an interview. Now I know that I'm talking to a comedian.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So let's talk about a situation. So you are on stage. Like we already talked about it, but I want to go a lot into a bit more into practical thing on the spot, like a bit in deep. So you are on stage. You said a joke that you would think would be very funny, and nobody laughed. Maybe they did not understand the reference of the background. Nobody laughed, and there is an awkward silence. You're waiting for them to laugh, and they're waiting for them to say the next word, and there is a very, very awkward moment. So how do you collect your thoughts at that moment, and how do you proceed with the performance? Because that can be a shock to a performer, and that can lead to maybe nervousness or blackout, complete blackout. So how do you deal with that situation when you say something and that is supposed to impress the audience and it does nothing? So how do you collect yourself in that particular second?
Thank you for that question, Rohan. It's a very important question because you're on stage to find out what works and what doesn't. Mm-hmm. So you find that something doesn't work, but you're engaged enough to just continue. Mm-hmm. You know, I mentioned before that sometimes you get knocked down, but the important thing is to get right up, mm-hmm, as if nothing happened. I told an audience a story. I didn't get the reaction that I usually get. Don't stop. It's this audience. It's the hour of the day. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They just had lunch. Everybody's tired. Let it be. Let them be who they are and just continue. Mm-hmm. And if I were doing the same thing in the morning, the morning before, it was morning. People just had breakfast. They had their coffee. And I went into them like that. And everybody's laughing. I say good morning and everybody's laughing. But then you get to a point where you're performing on a different hour. People might have a drink or something. They might have a beer that puts them down, you know. And then you're up there and they don't laugh. Fine, let them be who they are. You know, that's who they are. Acceptance. It's total acceptance. I accept you for what you are. And you're learning at the same time. This is not working. Maybe I have to go back and change the story or change the joke. Because every time you're on stage, you're learning something. Your audience is teaching you. I mean, my audience, you know, if you listen carefully, if you're on stage, what you should do is look at someone in the eyes, and they'll indicate to you. They'll tell you with their eyes, with their feelings, what they feel about you. And then you keep going, and then you pick somebody else. Don't talk to just the space. Pick someone. Talk straight to them, and they'll teach you. This is not working. This is working, so that you can go home and prepare for the next time. You keep learning, but don't stop, and don't be shocked, and don't expect. You don't know what's going to happen. I have the funniest jokes that worked for years, and I tell them, and if people are looking at me like, what? They're not even there. They got glass over their eyes. So let them be who they are. It's like meeting a person who's just different from you, and you accept them, and okay, and then go on to the next story or go on to the next thing or whatever it might be. Elisa, I'm on Zoom right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm not that old.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's my wife.
Lovely.
Yes, we're married for 56 years.
Okay. And you have been in love with a woman for 56 years, and your wife shouldn't know that.
You're stealing my material. You're stealing my jokes.
I heard that in one of your videos, and it was the best joke of that video, so I remember it.
Oh, there's a lot of jokes about marriage. You can take. First of all, most of my jokes today are about being old. You know, many people don't know what it's like to get to be 85, 86 years old. So a lot of my material is about where I am today, what it feels like to be my age, which is funny. And also the 56 years of marriage, there's a lot of stories to tell, you know, and they're funny because everybody who's married for any length of time or has a long relationship can identify with everything I say.
There are lots of jokes about Israelis and Indians. I see comedians like so many jokes about like Middle Easterns, Israelis, Indians, so many jokes. And
Yes,
they are funny, actually.
yes.
So this was the end of my questions about humor and public speaking. I believe you covered everything that I wanted to know, and you covered many other things that I did not want to
That you don't want to know.
that I did not want to know in this interview, but I loved all those point of views because I was learning from literally every line. Because when you go into philosophy, you make me think, and I love thinking.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
So my next question is, are there any books, any YouTube channel, or any podcast that you like? They can be related to public speaking, or they can be related to anything like philosophy and all that. Some book that influenced you a lot, and you would like the audience members, especially because my audience is young. They are in 20s or 30s. So any book that influenced you a lot, or podcast or YouTube channel or any material, and you would like them to go through that material.
Well, I'll tell you something, Ruhan. I have many books and many interests because I also was a Gestalt therapist. I don't know if you know what that is. And I meant many of the books I read were on therapy and Gestalt and Martin Buber and Rogers and all these psychologists. But if you're talking about public speaking, I'm reading a book right now. I mean, I could talk about that. And it's called Before and Laughter. Before and Laughter.
Interesting title.
And it's a book by Jimmy Carr. I think it's Carr. You can look him up on YouTube and watch him perform. And he wrote a book that I found, and also if you want to hear an interview with him, you could go to YouTube and write in Jimmy Carr and Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson.
I love that guy. I consider him like someone I look up to. Like when he speaks, when he debates, he's flawless. Jordan Peterson is someone I look up to. Like he's really big in front of my eyes.
Yes, I watch him almost every night. Every night. It's one of my, listening to him is like reading a good book.
It is. I agree.
Especially he talks for 2 hours sometimes. He does a thing called the biblical series. But this one I'm talking about is with Jimmy Carr and Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson asks him the same questions that you're asking me about comedy, because he's a comedian. He's a very successful comedian. And if you want to just watch one or two of his YouTubes, you could just type in Jimmy Carr on YouTube, and you'll see he's absolutely flawless. He's amazing. And his book is very human, and he talks about his life, and he talks about how he got into comedy. He talks about public speaking, because that's what he does, all his life. It's comedy, but it's actually, you could call it public speaking. I find that his journey for young people who are starting out and want to know more about public speaking and humor, by reading this book, will get involved quite rapidly. There are other books that I've read on public speaking. As a matter of fact, I have, my library is full of them here, but that's the
Books
one I'm
can be
reading right
about
now. That's what,
anything. Books can be about anything, not just public speaking. If they are about public speaking, then well and good. If they are not about public speaking, like psychology book or self-development book or anything that influenced you and your life, so you can
yeah.
recommend anything to the audience.
Well, here's what I'm reading now. Again, I read several books at a time. Here's my book. My book is called Everlasting Optimism, and you can get that on what is it called, Amazon. And I'm also reading this called Laugh Your Way to Grace.
Okay.
And it's by Reverend Susan Sparks. And I find this, it's called The Spiritual Power of Humor. The Spiritual Power of Humor, Laugh Your Way to Grace. And also Alan Klein has books on humor. He's also a public speaker, Alan Klein. And yeah, that's, I don't want to give you too much because that would be too much of on your plate. But whatever you have there, anybody listening in can either go to YouTube or Google or to Amazon and find something.
I'll mention all the links in description. Like I have noted
Okay.
everything, and I'll mention all the links to those books and Amazon in description. So is there any other person that you know personally and you think that I should talk to? Not about humor, but any element of public speaking, like maybe about business communication or maybe about sales pitches, like a person who is expert on sales presentations, any element of public speaking. So do you know anyone, any person to whom I should connect with and ask for an interview like this one that we just did?
Yeah, well, I have a good friend of mine right now. He wrote a book called the Cancer That Died of Laughter. He had cancer, stage 4, and how he used humor to cope with it. His name is Eyal, Eyal, Eltawil, Eltawil. He has a TED Talk. You can hear his TED Talk. It's about 8 or 9 minutes on his experience with having cancer and how he coped with it. Because humor, it also goes all the way to sickness or, God forbid, loss of, when you lose someone, or a lot of pain in your life, or depression or anxiety. Humor is really the antidote, and he does a good job on that. As far as another person that is a good friend of mine, and you can look him up, his name is Avi, A-V-I, Liran. I don't know if he wrote to you, but because I gave him your name, and he said he would write to you, but I guess he hasn't written to you.
Not yet.
And you can find him on deliveringdelight.com, deliveringdelight.com, Avi Liran. And he has several talks. He has a TED Talk as well. And I think he would be a good person to talk with. Avi Liran, Eyal Eltawil. You could also write down Eran Katz, EranKatz. He has many books out. And he's also, I think he's on YouTube. You can find him on YouTube. His lectures are very engaging. He uses a little bit of humor, but it's mostly about memory, how to use your memory better. So those are the people that I would recommend that you talk to. If you can get a hold of Jack Canfield, Jack Canfield, Canfield, he was one of my mentors, and he
Okay.
is amazing. He is amazing. And if you can get a hold of him, what you have to do with him, you see, I'm easy. You wrote to me and I said, I said, yes, every man would like to have a date like that. But when you write to Jack Canfield, you have to write maybe 10 times before he responds, because he tests your willingness. He wants to know if you're just flirting with him or if you're serious.
No,
And after about,
I want to marry him.
okay, you have to meet this guy. Okay, but that means you have to write like 10 emails. You won't hear from him after the first one, the second one, the third one. Just keep going, because when he sees that you are consistent and that you really, really want to talk to him, he will become available. But you have to run after him. He's not easy. He wrote a series called Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Okay.
And he sold 120 million copies.
Wow.
Okay. And he was my mentor when it came to things like branding, like self-esteem, like marketing. He's a marketing genius. Before I wrote my book, I had a workshop with him in California, and I didn't even write my book, but he taught me and the others how to make a bestseller, how to get to 100,000, 200,000, 1 million copies. People who study with him, if they do what he tells them to do, they become very successful in marketing, in communication, in selling. These are the things also that speakers should know: how to brand yourself, how to get yourself out and stand above the crowd. And he will teach you that. In 1 hour, you can get amazing tips from him. If you can get a hold of him, he's a hard person to get a hold of. As a matter of fact, he wrote on my book. I had to ask him to write a testimonial. So he wrote on my book up here, Jack Canfield, something. I don't know if you can read that. He says, finally, a book about optimism that's hilariously funny. So get a hold of him and you got the whole world in your hands. He's amazing, amazing.
I'll try my best, because I'm also planning to write a book. So his advice will be really, really valuable to me. And I actually approached a person like that, Mr. David J.P. Phillips. He is a public speaking expert. I saw his TED talk and I immediately decided that this person has to be my mentor. Initially, I started approaching him on Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere. He ignored me, though he sometimes replied to my messages, but he showed no interest in mentoring me or something like that. Then I kept approaching him, kept messaging him for like many months. Finally, he said yes.
Great. What's his name?
David J.P. Phillips. You can see his TED Talks. He has 3 TED Talks.
What's his name?
David J.P. Phillips.
J.P.
Phillips. I'll share the link with you. Share a link of his TED Talks with you. He has 3 amazing TED Talks. One is called Death by PowerPoint. And it's one of the most viewed TED Talks ever in the history of TED.
Okay, send me the link. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll send you the link. So, Mr. Lenny, this was one of the most hilarious interviews I have conducted. I have posted 1 or 2 on YouTube, and I have conducted many more, but this was the best till now. Thank you so much. You are the sweetest person ever, seriously, and handsome as hell. So here comes the end of our interview. Thank you so much for watching.